She started her career at Macy's West, where we actually first met, and she went on to take very senior roles, inclusive of VP of Women's Merchandising, and then made the jump over to the Gap, where she held a similar role leading the women's merchandising team there. I've had the pleasure to work with Anne for several years, and I could tell you and attest personally that she leads with a consumer-centric mindset. She has an innate ability to drive change in a complex market and has the highest degree of retail acumen you'll find literally anywhere. Those of us that work with her daily know she shows up as our authentic self and leads with compassion and empathy, and that serves her well in her role leading 1,000 merchants globally, worldwide. So with that said, I'd like to introduce and just give a warm welcome to Anne Spangenberg.
If we show emotion, we're called dramatic. If we want to play against men, we're nuts. And if we dream of equal opportunity, delusional. When we stand for something, we're unhinged. When we're too good, there's something wrong with us. And if we get angry, we're hysterical, irrational, or just being crazy. But a woman running a marathon was crazy.
Officials tried to pull her off the course.
A woman boxing was crazy. A woman dunking? Crazy. Coaching an NBA team? Crazy. A woman competing in a hijab, changing her sport, landing a double cork 1080? Or winning 23 Grand Slams, having a baby, and then coming back for more? Crazy, 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 and crazy. So if they want to call you crazy, fine. Show them what crazy can do.
Hi everyone, I'm Anne Spangenberg and I lead the merchant teams at Nike. And I'm here to talk to you today about one of my own crazy dreams, which is serving consumers personally at scale. But before I do that, I want to thank Eric so much for the very wonderful introduction and to all of you for the warm welcome. As somebody who's been connected to the retail industry for my entire career, it is an honor and a privilege to be here today with the students who are the future of this industry and with so many industry leaders. So at Nike, our merchants are responsible for delivering the right product at the right time to the right consumers. And that's always been the formula for a successful merchant. But in this digitally driven age, delivering that product requires us to create a more personal relationship with our consumers so that we can drive growth in an increasingly complicated digital and physical landscape. Nike was founded in 1972 to serve athletes, and we've been setting the industry pace ever since. As you saw from that video, we have an amazing stable of athletes and assets that we get to work with. And so while I'm here to talk to you today about how we want to serve consumers personally now, I want to tell you a little bit about how Nike first started serving those consumers. How many of you have read Phil Knight's book, Shoe Dog? Okay, so a few of you in the room will be familiar with this story. It's part of our company history, and it's something that we refer to a lot. So in the beginning, Nike engaged with consumers by selling shoes out of the back of an old VW bus. Our teams would drive to track meets across the country to fit and test footwear on athletes. And they'd follow up that fit session or that selling session with a handwritten note from the people who did that fit testing. So the personal connections that they were creating allowed us to receive feedback on what was working with that product And it also created a sense where the athletes could be heard. So it turned that moment that could have been just a connection, or it could have been just a transaction, into a moment of consumer loyalty. And it made those athletes feel heard. So we understand that connection is a little bit easier to build when you're just selling 1 or 2 running models and you're just dealing with elite athletes. Our business has changed and it's gotten a little bit more complicated over the ensuing years. So both our company and our consumers have changed a lot since those days of serving the consumer out of the back of a van. But what's really interesting is the fact that we've come full circle. And so as you think about the phases in which we've introduced ourselves to consumers, from those one-on-one connections that we were creating with our consumers out of the back of the van, to the age of broadcast, and from broadcast to the age of internet, and from internet to how we're connecting with our consumers socially, what's really interesting is that we've expanded our business significantly. We're reaching an incredible scope of consumers through our footwear, our apparel, and our equipment offers, through the multiple categories of sport that we're doing business in, and we're doing business in 160 countries worldwide. And while we are an incredibly consumer-centric organization, one of the most consumer-centric organizations out there, we are literally focused constantly on what our consumers can tell us. That dialogue is largely a one-way dialogue rather than a two-way dialogue. And so as we think about how we want to return to our roots and build and foster those one-on-one consumer relationships, what's going to make the difference for us is going to be data. And data where we're going to be able to create a two-way dialogue with our consumers so that we can serve them in a more personalized way. And we refer to that, as you see, is the logged-in state, connecting with our consumers one-on-one, but doing that at scale. So an interesting fact is that Nike has over 600 million unique interactions with consumers every year. And imagine what would happen if we could turn those 600 million unique interactions into logged-in experiences that could provide us with the understanding of the unique needs of those consumers. But what we know, and what we've been hearing over the past day or so, is that if those consumers are going to give us that information, they are going to expect something in return. They're going to expect that the product and the experiences and the services that we're providing them are going to be more personal. That data that they're going to willingly share with us is going to help us to understand what they like, what they don't like, and what they're coming back to shop for from us again and again. And that information is going to get us after our goal of serving our consumers personally. So in this logged-in era, what we've found is that our consumer expectations have shifted and we face a new type of competition. And I want to talk to you about both of those things, but we'll start with what's most important, which is with our consumer. And so what we're talking about here is digitally native consumers. And those digitally native consumers are otherwise known as Gen Z consumers. So those of you students in the room are absolutely our target audience. And so as we're thinking about what our Gen Z consumers expect, our Gen Z consumers expect easy and entertaining commerce through a connected and seamless online to offline experience. They're going to expect fast and responsive incorporation of their feedback. And what we know is that the majority of our consumers expect brands to be attentive and expect brands to be responsive to what they need. And then finally, they want to share this data. And I have been amazed at the data that they're willing to share with us. But they want to share it with us in return for one-to-one personalization. So again, if they're going to provide us with that data, they want us to remember them in order that we can better serve them. And when it comes to our competition, this is also an interesting one. So we as a brand and retailers have traditionally measured success based on share of consumer wallet. So if you think about how we were thinking about this back in the day, this would be our traditional competitor set. This might be Adidas, this might be Lululemon, this might be Under Armour. And we were thinking about how do we gain more of our competition's share of wallet. But in this logged in era, we've got an opportunity to connect and compete for something more. And so if you look at what we're competing for to acquire, that breadth of our competition is much larger than it used to be. And our competitors, which can also sometimes be our critical partners, if they gather more data than we do, if they get to know our consumer better than we do, that means that they could offer the product and the experiences that directly compete with our brand. And so in order for us to serve our consumers best, we want to build better relationships with our consumers than anyone else. And we know that we've got to retain our ability to reach out and engage with those consumers directly without having to rely on intermediaries to give us the information about what those consumers want and what products are going to serve them best. So we know that our consumer expectations are high and they're going to continue to grow. And so in order to truly serve those consumers better, we're going to have to know them better. And we're going to have to move past a traditional connection point or past what we'd always thought of as most important was that transaction. We need to build a relationship with our consumers. And anyone in the room, most of you in the room, know that when you're building a relationship, that is not a one-way dialogue. That's going to be a very unsuccessful relationship. So that's about a two-way dialogue. That's about connecting back with our consumers to understand what they want, to hear what they're thinking about, and to serve them in a much more personal way. We want to know them better so that we are able to serve them better. And so that's why our strategy is to build unbreakable relationships between our athletes and Nike. And you see that asterisk next to the athletes. We've always said, Bill Bowerman, one of our founders, said that if you have a body, you're an athlete. So it's not just about elite athletes. It's elite athletes, it's everyday athletes, and very important to us, it's the 72,000 internal athletes that work for us in the organization. So our goal for that athlete community is to provide access to sport and to inspire a new generation of consumers to move. And one of the ways that we do that is by serving our consumers the most amazing product in the world. So this strategy is going to change the course of our engagement with consumers. We're going to move from connections or transactions to unbreakable relationships. We're going to move from the idea of simply a transaction to the idea of the lifetime value of a consumer and what that might represent to us. And we're going to move from a focus on footwear, apparel, and equipment to serving our consumers the 365 lifestyle of sport. So in order to build those relationships, we're moving from what used to be a very linear focus on the consumer's purchase journey into creating what we call the engagement flywheel. Through deeper engagement with consumers, we're going to be able to get more data, and we're going to be able to deliver more personal experiences. And through that data and through personal experiences, we're going to be able to grow that flywheel. And as the flywheel grows, the flywheel begins to get faster. And one of the things that we've started to learn about this that we think is really interesting is that that flywheel works in a phygital environment, right? That flywheel works as you're thinking about the consumer's digital journey and also the consumer's retail experiences. So in order to fuel that flywheel, both physically and digitally, we need to understand a couple of things. We need to understand 4 things, and I'm going to break those down for you. So the first thing that we need to understand is engagement. We need to understand how are our consumers engaging with our products and the experiences that we're delivering to them. We need to understand what they're clicking on and what they're purchasing and why. And we want to understand not only the product that we're serving to them, but also the experiences that we're serving to them better. The next thing that we need to understand from the consumer is we need to understand the data that they're providing for us. So out of that engagement, we're going to get data from our consumers about what they like and why. We're going to get data about new or different products that could serve their lifestyles in different ways. We're going to understand when they want to engage with us and how often, which is critical in the way we think about how we flow product to consumers. And most importantly, we're going to understand how we can better serve our consumers. The next thing that we need to think about is how we understand our consumers in a more personal way. So we want to leverage this data to build personalization and really meet our consumers where they are. We understand that consumers are not one-dimensional, and we may have a female consumer who may want to use our product to go to brunch in the morning. And then in the afternoon, if she's got to pick up that game of basketball that she's going to want to play, she may need to use a different product in a different way. And so when we think about the focus of her day, we want to make sure that we're serving her personally those products that she really needs so that we can really base our product offer and the product and services that we're providing for her in the most personal way possible for her. And then finally, experiences. And this has become a huge part about how we think of serving consumers. We want to create tailored experiences for our consumers based on consumer preferences. And how many of you all have downloaded either the Nike app or one of our apps like the running app or the Nike Training Club? Few people in the room, great. Okay, so I'm a runner, and one of the things that I think is the most amazing about the experiences is that when I go to New York City, the app will recognize me. It recognizes where I am. It recognizes running routes that I might want to run. It recognizes coaching journeys that I might want to go on. And so those are the kinds of things that we're thinking about that are value add to our consumers' lifestyles and the service that we can provide for them. So I want to get into some of the real examples of how we're starting to see this come to life in retail, because as a lifelong retailer, this is what really, really gets me excited and what's geeking me out and the team out as we're thinking about how we're able to better serve consumers. And many of these experiences, retail journeys, and digital journeys are ones that have just come online over the past year or so. And so we're learning a ton. Our goal is to get in there, try a few things, fail as fast as we can, and then begin to learn from those and implement them in new experiences along the way. So the first image that you're seeing here is our Nike By Melrose store. And it's an example of how we've used data to inform key decisions, not only about the assortments that we're creating in stores, but we actually made a decision about how we would drive location and assortment and member engagement. So Nike by Melrose is a concept that we introduced in LA last summer to serve the local consumer. And it's changed the way that we've thought about retail, certainly the consumer's digital journey. And so we mine data from Nike.com to get really specific about consumers that live in the area zip code. And we made a decision about where we were going to place that store based on our most passionate consumers in the area and the product that they love. And so knowing what they love most from season to season has allowed us to influence the product and the assortments that we're serving those consumers in the store. And what we're also being able to find out is that if they're searching for a product online, we can have that product available for them in the store as well so that they can try it on or they can touch it and feel it when they're coming into the store. We know also that this consumer shops with us on a very regular basis. And so that's impacted the frequency of which we are flowing our product. And when you think about how big an organization we are and how big our supply chain is, that is no easy task. But we're now flowing into the store on a bi-weekly basis to ensure that this consumer sees newness when they shop. And at the same time, we're also making sure we know what their favorites are, and so we want to make sure that we're in stock, in color, and in size in our consumers' favorite. And so our consumers are really voting for the product and the assortments that are making it into the store, and they're really helping us to understand what's trending, so that so that a consumer who might be walking in, who's just walking down Melrose Street, is already predisposed because of where they live and what they're thinking about that LA lifestyle to love that product that's in store. I think the other element of this that's really interesting, and we've gotten a ton of press on this, and it's something that actually surprised me a lot as we think about how much the consumer loved this, and this is the unlock box. So we've actually got a vending machine in store that dispenses socks to our consumers, our members, when they walk in and they unlock a code that says, "Welcome to the store. We as Nike know you. We welcome you in, we recognize you, and we'd like to give you a gift for engaging with us." And you would be amazed how often we have to stock those socks in the vending machine. So it's just something that is just a little something extra special in terms of the experience that's excited our consumer. And so finally, the Nike by Melrose store for us has really proven that physical and digital are complementing each other. So one other really fun fact in this space is that we've seen a 40% increase in digital from the consumers who are experiencing us in our physical location. And so Nike by Melrose members are placing more digital orders than a like group of consumers that are out there as we're doing our A/B testing. So pretty interesting as you think about the store experience there. The next one I wanted to talk to you about, and Suzanne set us up really well yesterday, is our acceleration of our online to offline experiences through Nike's Houses of Innovation in Shanghai and in New York City. And so in these locations, we have really shifted the consumer journey in a couple of different really critical ways. So a couple of different ways we've done that. The first one is the mannequin stands that you see as you're coming on into the store and onto the key locations on our floors. We've put QR codes on those mannequin runs so that if you like the look that you see on a mannequin, you can scan the QR code on the display to see where that product is in stock, in size, in color for you. We've got a virtual cart so that you can actually scan QR codes on all the product that's in the store. And if you want to have that product to try on, you don't need to engage with a sales associate if you don't want to. Of course, there's plenty of them there in the store, but you can actually just scan the QR codes, put it into a virtual cart, and that product will show up in one of our fitting rooms in the store for you. So it makes it a very, very easy and seamless consumer journey. And then finally, instant checkout. So traditional checkout in the store is absolutely still available, but for those of us that might be in a hurry or want to spend our time doing something else while we're in the store, you can add the items that you want to buy through the instant checkout feature on the app, and then you can pay as you would online without ever engaging with one of the store athletes. Next one for us to talk about, and this one is something that our product creation teams are passionately excited about, is co-creation and engagement with our consumers. And so we're experimenting right now with engaging earlier with our consumers in the product creation process. And we're giving them an opportunity to influence what product that we're creating. And so the example that you see here is a collection that was voted on by our consumers amongst a number of different options that we provided for them. And so their feedback informed not only what styles we were going to provide for them in store, but it also provided for us an understanding based on their interest of the depth of styles that we should create and that we should buy. And so as we wanted to close the feedback loop in this space, which was a lot of fun, we reached back out to these consumers to let them know that the product was ready for them and that they could purchase this product that they actually got to vote on, which was great. And then something that is one of our hottest applications and amongst our most passionate communities is the example of how we're fueling that flywheel through our Nike Sneakers app. And so, as many of you know, we have an incredibly passionate and growing sneaker community. And our sneakers apps allow all of our members to connect with the most desired shoes in the world. And so in looking at our membership data, what we wanted to be able to do is do something really special for those consumers that were really passionate fans of a specific product. And so we found that in New York City, the Dominican community has an absolute affinity for one of our icons, the Nike Air Force One. And so our teams collaborated together to create a shoe that personally served that community, the Nike Air Force One De La Mio. And so one of the other things that we were able to do is that while we wanted to offer this product out to these very specific consumers, we were able to geofence that product offer so that the recognition to those consumers that that product was available first to them. Needless to say, it's sold out immediately. And so one of the things that we're learning through this process is that as our consumers are engaging with our products and our content more and more, we're getting more signals to fuel that flywheel about their preferences so that we can uncover groups that we can serve more personally, more effectively, and surprise them and delight them on a regular basis. So right now, what I'm talking to my team about is the fact that we are at a strategic inflection point. In my 25 years as a merchant, I have never seen so much opportunity to change the way we operate. And I loved what Terry and Marvin talked about this morning about creating a learning culture and a culture of curiosity in your teams. It's pretty exciting to me that somebody, myself, having grown up as a merchant, doesn't really quite know how to navigate this new world and how to effectively and best serve these Gen Z consumers. And so to be able to continually learn something so new and so exciting and transformational is pretty remarkable. And so by leveraging data and analytics, we're going to be able to take that consumer on a new journey, and we're going to be able to take the consumer on a new journey on their terms, not on our terms. It's going to give us so much more than just a share of their wallet. We're going to provide them experiences that they're going to love and that are going to keep them engaged. And we're gathering consumer loyalty by giving them the curated experiences that they now expect from brands, delivered by the power of the world's most amazing product and services. We know that we lived in a logged-in era, and we know that consumers are moving faster than ever. And so that means that we as merchants need to lead in a new way. We need to constantly evolve the way that we're serving our consumers, and we're serving them where they are so that we can push the boundaries of traditional retail. And what's really exciting about this is that we now have the data at our fingertip so that we can use the judgment and the art of merchandising that our teams really love, rather than struggling to get after that science, in order to use those two things in combination to analyze the business to best serve our consumers. It is an incredibly exciting time to be a merchant, which I know is exciting for those of you students who are here in the audience, and it's an incredibly exciting time to be a merchant at Nike. So ultimately, our growth stems exactly where we started. We're talking to our consumers, we're getting to know them, we're incorporating their feedback, and we're serving them those products that they love one-to-one. So I'm going to leave you with a video, and then I'll take your thoughts and questions. Thank you.
If people say your dreams are crazy, if they laugh at what you think you can do. Good. Stay that way. Because what non-believers fail to understand is that calling a dream crazy is not an insult. It's a compliment. Don't try to be the fastest runner in your school or the fastest in the world. Be the fastest ever. Don't picture yourself wearing OBJ's jersey. Picture OBJ wearing yours. Don't settle for homecoming queen or linebacker. Do both. Lose 120 pounds and become an Ironman after beating a brain tumor. Don't believe you have to be like anybody to be somebody. If you're born a refugee, don't let it stop you from playing soccer for the national team at age 16. Don't become the best basketball player on the planet. Be bigger than basketball. Believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything. When they talk about the greatest team in the history of the sport, make sure it's your team. If you have only one hand, don't just watch football, play it at the highest level. And if you're a girl from Compton, don't just become a tennis player. Become the greatest athlete ever. Yeah, that's more like it. So don't ask if your dreams are crazy. Ask if they're crazy enough.
We have a question back here to your left.
Okay.
Going back to your Nike By Melrose retail space, very cool space. I've had the pleasure of visiting that. So
Oh, that's awesome.
kudos on that. Was really cool to see. And just kind of sit there and watch people as they were experiencing that space too. But if you could maybe expand specific to that, I believe I read somewhere when that first opened or was kind of coming close to open that you were going to be kind of gauging how that played out and look for ways to maybe kind of scale similar concepts in other cities. I was just wondering if there are plans that are already in place for similar retail spaces elsewhere
Yeah.
throughout the country, or if you could just kind of speak to that a little bit.
That's great. Thank you. Great question. We are, yes, learning a ton from what's happening in the Nike by Melrose location, and we're scaling that concept into other locations, both in the U.S. and internationally. And I think one of the things that's most interesting about how we get after doing this is that what we want to be able to do is deeply understand the consumers in that location. So one of the super cool things about that is that a consumer can order something online and they can actually just drive by the store. We've got a concierge service where they can just pick up, and you know how difficult parking is in LA. They can drive to the back of the store, pick up, and move along. Or they can spend time in our stores. Those are the kinds of things that are really specific to an LA consumer. They may want to shop on Melrose Street all day long, or they may have something else they want to get after. And so we're trying to think about what kind of services and experiences that we can provide that are unique to that consumer. The other thing that we have is a rooftop location at that store, which we use for special events. We use it for yoga classes, for Nike Training Club classes. And so again, thinking about what the physical retail space is and how we use that to engage and provide amazing services for the consumer may look different based on the physical location and the consumers in that environment.
I have a question over here in the middle.
Hi, Ann. I am Julie Hillary. I teach at The Ohio State University, and one of the classes I teach is corporate social responsibility. And we've talked a lot about your Colin Kaepernick ad this semester, and I'm just wondering if you could speak a little bit about the risk that Nike took and how you made the decision to use him in your advertising campaign.
Absolutely. It's a great question. It is one of the things that I'd say our internal teammates are the most proud of. It, to your point, was a risk. Not everybody appreciated, and we got plenty of engagement both ways on social media from consumers. But we support our athletes on and off the field. And we have a deep commitment to equity and to equality and to supporting our athletes. And so it's a moment that we are really proud of, and after seeing that commercial probably for the 50th time, it still brings me to tears. So hope that answers your question. Yeah.
And then I have a question over here to the
Thank you.